Now let's get more reaction now to the Middle East Peace Conference that's taking place in Annapolis in America. As we've heard, so far the Israeli and Palestinian leaders have agreed to work towards a peace agreement by the end of next year. If they succeed, it'll bring an end to more than 6 decades of conflict in the region. Well, we can now speak to Hussein Ibish, a fellow of the American Task Force on Palestine, who's in our Washington studio now. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. Now, after a rather pessimistic lead-up to this conference, we now seem to have quite a lot of positivity, certainly coming from President Bush. Do you share that view, that this is now going to be productive?
Well, I think that the meeting has been everything that it could have been. Now, that is to say that people have made the best of a difficult situation. You have 3 weakened governments, the American, the Israeli, and the Palestinian governments, all of which have their own, political problems. But you certainly have 3 at least very important factors here at work that could create room for future momentum. First, an Israeli and Palestinian leader who believe in each other's sincerity about achieving peace for the first time in a long time. Secondly, serious talks for the first time in a long time. And thirdly, a really quite dramatic display of international and regional support for the process. 40+ nations, and especially interesting and striking is the Arab representation, including Saudi Arabia at the foreign ministerial level and Syria, both of which I think could not have been confidently predicted a couple of weeks ago. So I think, yes, insofar as there is room for positivity, it's been there on display in Annapolis, yeah.
Hamas, though, not invited, not attending, refusing to recognise any agreement that takes place there. How meaningful can any peace settlement that comes out of there be without their agreement?
Yeah, I think Hamas is both overrated and underrated. I mean, you can't in any way disregard its constituency. There'll always be a religious party among the Palestinians, as with many other peoples, and it'll be Hamas for the foreseeable future. On the other hand, people who say that Hamas simply has a veto or can stand in the way of the ability of the PLO and the PA to forge a deal with Israel, I think are wrong, both legally, because the chairman of the PLO is in fact authorized to negotiate with Israel, that's Mahmoud Abbas, and also because Hamas is really just a Palestinian political party, and actually one that's doing very badly at the moment politically, polling at around 15% consistently over polls, and certainly polling much lower than Fatah. Now, of course, the pendulum could swing, and I do think at some point Hamas, if possible, if they can meet the preconditions that would allow not only the international community but also the other Arabs and the other Palestinians to take them seriously in terms of negotiating with Israel. In other words, if they were to renounce violence and accept international law, the Arab League Peace Initiative, Security Council Resolution 242, and accept in principle the concept of a two-state solution, all of that would make it possible. Until then, I think what has to be taken into account is Hamas's constituency among Palestinians rather than Hamas, the political party. And Hamas's constituency, like the Israeli religious right, the Palestinian religious right needs to be, treated as an important part of civil society, all of which needs to be brought into the process at the appropriate moment.
Okay, Hussein Ibish, we've got to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your time this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.